right. Well, good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, June 25th. It is 10:18 in the morning, and I'd like to make a motion to begin.
Yep.
Okay. I'll second that.
And we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And just a note that this meeting is being recorded. I know I just handed out meeting minutes from last meeting, the 21st of May, so I don't know if you need a couple minutes to review.
Sure. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes. The minutes from May 21st, 2024. Do I have a second?
I wasn't there, I got abstained.
Oh.
No, I wasn't there either. I
Okay.
can't second.
Can I second, even if I wrote them? I'll second.
Okay.
But
All
how
in
many,
favor?
how many do we have to vote on it? Just three?
Yeah, I guess.
How many were there at the meeting?
We might have to wait till next meeting.
Yeah.
I
Might
think we
have
should
to.
wait till the next
We'll
meeting.
table that till next meeting.
Yeah. Right.
So I guess next up, we have Jane with CMRPC joining us via Zoom. If you can hear us. Oh, no.
Oh, Jane can't hear anything.
Over there. Yep.
I can't hear.
We can
We
hear
can
you.
hear you.
Huh.
Can you hear me?
You can.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
I can't hear anything there.
Okay. We can hear you. Can you hear us?
She said no. She
Still
can't
not.
hear us.
Okay.
Thank you. I just can't hear anything there, but if you want, I can get started. Carrie, Joe, and Victoria had a meeting at Nichols College and apparently are running a little bit late, but they should be on their way shortly. I didn't know if you wanted me to get started by showing you a couple of layouts for the final report. And I'll need Amanda to give me access to share. With a couple of layouts for the report. One of them is more in a landscape format. We tried keeping with some of the colors that we see around the town. So we'd had this cover page, whoops, too fast. Our drone photographer went out and got some images of the this area. We would have an acknowledgements page, which we'll need to expand on some more because we've had other staff helping with us between photography and some of the writing. A table of contents page. an introduction to what the project is about, a little bit of history of the Gateway location, a description of Merino Village and its history, as well as the French River. Come on. Okay, that might be the last. No, I'm going to show you the other format. Just one moment. Hopefully you can all see this. The other format has similar colors, a little bit more muted, and it's more of a portrait type layout. With the same information as the other document. It's just a little bit different, bit of a layout. And of course, we'll be adding any of the other exhibits and all of the text into the document. We were just hoping to get some feedback from you today on which format you might prefer. And I still can't hear any of you. So
I can type in
let me see if I can change speakers, if that's gonna. Can you still hear me? I changed speakers. Yeah, okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about was just an update on the status of some of the items that we're working on for this project.
Amanda, would it be possible to,
Victoria's working on all of the logo and marketing
Jane, could
stuff,
you-
as well
could you
as the gateway
type it-
design,
have her stop for a second?
wayfinding, and some of the tactical urbanism.
I'm wondering, can we call her?
I was gonna
So
offer my
she
personal
can talk to us
opinion.
and she can hear us
And
on
I
the phone.
I could envision that the logo or the identity for the area would keep with the historic name of the area being Merino Village. So I didn't know if that was something that the committee was open to. It could be something like Merino Village, a village of Dudley. As far as the streetscape improvements go, I've met with our engineer on staff with CMRPC, and I've also met with the interim highway director in Dudley on possible cable access. Do you need to speak? I see a hand up. Okay.
I'm trying to get a dial tone here, Amanda, I don't. Plugged in?
I know nothing about the speaker.
Maybe 9. It's usually. Tell mine.
990 get out, yeah.
Hey, look at that.
Hi, Jane.
I can hear you.
Okay, why don't we do this then? At least we have audio.
Can she hear, can one of you talk into the mic?
Sure. Can you hear us now?
Yeah.
You can hear us.
Okay.
Yeah. It's great.
Okay.
One of my cables were.
Jane,
Did
if
you
you
have
could.
any comments on the presentation? Or any feedback?
It looks great so far.
Okay.
Yeah. Should we, I think her question was, do we have
Do you have
preferences
preference?
on format?
I don't
I
have a
don't.
particular
I don't
preference.
either.
I like the second one myself, but
I think you could ask all of us and we'd have a different preference, so
Yeah,
just pick the
yeah.
one you think is the most effective.
Right.
Sure.
So Joanne likes the second one. How about anyone else?
That's fine by me.
Fine by
That's,
me as well.
yeah, me too.
Yep, sounds good.
Yeah, we were looking at the landscape one just because of whatever plans we put in there. The format will fit better in there, but we could do either one.
Sounds great.
Good.
Okay. So let me get back to. So we met with the interim highway director and our engineer about things like where do we put crosswalks and where do we put sidewalks and what are the parking possibilities on the street. And have some of the challenges are that they're all offset intersections, so there's not like really clearly defined places where you would want to put the crosswalks. And so that kind of just creates a challenge there. In some sections over by the gas station and Napa, they don't have any curb or sidewalk, so we would recommend that they be added there. The curvature of the roadway can create a sight distance issue, so we need to take that into consideration for location of the crosswalks. And there's actually only one drain inlet in the West Main Street area of the Gateway, and that's in front of Dunkin' Donuts. So other than that, all of the rainwater just flows down the street. So we would recommend that whatever improvements are done on the street, long-term, would include updated stormwater modifications. As far as the parking goes, the only really ideal areas that we saw were in front of those three buildings that have the glass storefronts. There's actually a rental house in between. And then also in front of, is it Wookiees? The dog grooming place. And it only accounts for maybe 8 spaces maximum. So we're recommending that a parking study be followed up, and I will chat with our transportation planners to see if they can work on that. Let me see. So of course, we talked before about the conceptual streetscape improvements. Per our engineer, the underground electric could run around $3 million. So we would have to find a funding source for that. The lighting, the curb and sidewalks, much more doable, the ADA ramps. And as far as landscape improvements, I was in Northampton this weekend, and their downtown area, they used all large pots for their landscaping rather than trying to dig into the ground to put landscape in there, and that might be a nice alternative to having to put in infrastructure to plant trees on the ground. Some of the other issues are that the north side of West Main seems like the best location for trees. However, that's where the power lines are. So it creates another challenge. If the power lines were underground, it wouldn't be an issue. Our engineer thinks that if the lines were put underground, they would probably be placed in the street, along with any other utility updates. Any questions on parking, streetscape, crosswalks? And the highway director would like to see new signal equipment at the intersection of Schofield and West Main. He said it's quite old. No comments?
Nothing for me.
Oh,
I'm good.
Okay.
Jane,
as far as
I have a question.
Yes?
On your parking analysis, do you think that there's a shortage of parking in the area, or it's not properly identified, or it's not aesthetically pleasing? What's your overall sense of the parking quantity and quality there?
Part of it has to do where the existing driveways are. There really isn't any in front of the gas station in Napa just because there's no curb and sidewalk there. So, if you might be able to get some more in there if that was upgraded to include curb and sidewalk, and you had delineated curb cuts for those businesses rather than having it just an open asphalt area where people can turn anywhere they want to. I think when a consultant actually gets on board to do the construction documents, they can get even more accurate measurements to see if the roadway can accommodate more parking. But just the materials we had to view it with did not show that there was really that much space given the existing conditions. But, if we're looking at doing major improvements, that can change.
Seems like the road is pretty wide through there. I would think it could accommodate some curbside parking and maybe a bike lane or something of that sort. Do you have a sense of what a profile might look like for the road through there?
It could, because like the section in front of from Schofield down to past Dollar General, it's about 65 feet wide.
Oh.
But at the bridge, it's only 45, and then it tapers out to 60. So that section by the bridge is much narrower. You may be able to get additional parking with the improvements.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. Facade improvement program. I know it was that was a difficult meeting when we discussed all of the requirements involved in developing a program and having someone to manage it and identifying the funding source. And I learned from Terry that she had actually managed one for a town. And we think that with the limited area of the gateway area, that it could be a limited term program, maybe for 2 years, maybe 3 years. And so if it was something that was limited term, CMRPC may be able to provide assistance with managing it for that term. So that's a possibility for finding somebody to manage and implement that program. And several funding sources were identified, and they'll all be in the final report. Looking at the zoning considerations, with everything built out pretty much there, if you were to change the zoning to allow, narrower front setbacks and requiring parking in the rear, you could have zoning that would allow for more mixed-use walkable development. Whether anything is going to change down there as far as the existing structures, I don't know. And I would think most of those there are pre-existing non-conforming. But we can create some minor amendments to zoning or an overlay district to accommodate future modifications to allow for that walkable mixed use.
Do you have any sample zoning from other towns that you think we could look at that would give us some ideas of what to do with the zoning in that area in Dudley?
I can probably pull a few up. Yeah, we've done several village center zoning. I guess my only hesitation is that we're looking at what's existing. So the question is, how much is it going to change? Is it going to change? But it would be good to have the zoning in place should somebody want to come in and redevelop a site. And then we will go into the cost estimates, potential funding sources, and phasing the plan, which will show near-term, mid-term, long-term improvements as you work towards getting the entire project done. I think Robin seemed to like the idea of Merino Village as a name for the area. I didn't know if anyone else had any comments.
Nice.
I like it.
I liked it. I
like
yeah, I
it.
did. I think probably my body language, I kind of liked it. Maybe because I live in that area and it just seems like, you know, tying it to
Very fitting.
the pond.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I like
it
it.
seemed fitting. Village of Dudley was nice too,
Oh, I like the other one better.
but I like
Yeah.
Marina
The more
Village.
historic aspect to it, yeah.
I wonder if we could tie in with the Quinnipiac-Shetucket Heritage Corridor, if they've done any kind of village signage or thematic kind of look to their,
Yeah.
in their communities. Do you know, Jane, whether the Heritage Corridor has done anything in that area? Maybe as a
I can
resource?
certainly find out.
Okay. I know the Blackstone Valley has sort of common signage for a lot of their historical mill villages. I'm just wondering if there's anything done in this corridor.
So are you thinking more Blackstone Valley or
Well,
the last green belt?
yeah, I'm thinking the last Green Valley, because that's what Dudley's in.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But certainly the Blackstone Valley, very close, and they've done some good work in that area too, so we could look at that. But if the Quinnipiac-Shetucket has done something already, then we could try to tap into that resource.
Sure. That would be great. Hey, look who's here.
Yeah.
Jane, can you talk a bit about landscaping and what sort of opportunities we might have to try to improve the visual appearance of the area?
Yes. So we were looking at, in the near term, having planters like either large plastic ones or whiskey kegs, something that would accommodate, a good amount of plants in it. Longer term, it could be street trees placed in the ground. But as I mentioned, I did see like birch trees in large planters on the sidewalk in Northampton this weekend. So there are options without having to cut into concrete and digging down to introduce some greenery to soften the views in the area.
To the committee, is there a local organization in town that could take on some of the planters to keep them looking like they're, with new flowers and whatnot?
Right, right. I don't know.
Somebody, is there a local group in town that can do that?
Maybe the women's club. They're pretty busy.
Because I don't know whether the town would, the highway department has a lot of other, work. I don't know whether they would maintain the planters.
Yeah. I don't know, but it's a good question.
So it's a good question, okay.
Good question. Yep, and what to put in them.
I mean, if it's a possibility, like the corrections facility. Remember years ago, they used to come down and like clean up Main Street like once a month, and they would wash the fire trucks. This is going back like 15 years ago or so. Maybe that's an option to reach out to the sheriff's office in Webster and
Okay.
gets people out, into the
Okay.
community, let them come out once a month or something. I mean, it's usually free, and
Right.
you just supply them with whatever, they need, but they supply the labor.
And this would require watering also, but you could choose light standards that allow for hanging baskets on them.
Say, drought tolerant plants for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll try to put something together.
Yeah.
Okay?
The different ideas that would work. Yeah.
Yeah, native plants, ornamental grasses, they're all tend to be more drought tolerant. Sometimes they need watering within the first couple of years, but once they're established, they should be fine.
Good, right.
we thinking more going more the potted style versus like the planted in the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I agree with
Yeah.
that.
It looks,
Right.
it looks nice.
better, yeah.
I've
You're not
noticed
gonna
that in other towns.
Because a lot of the trees grow, they disturb the
Yeah.
sidewalks and stuff like that over time
Yeah.
with the root systems.
How about street trees? I know you mentioned the power lines interfere with that. Can we get lower growing trees that might not interfere with power lines?
In the ground or in pots?
Street trees in the ground.
In the ground. It's whether or not the power company will allow it, if they have an easement there. You could probably do it on the south side, but in looking at the existing conditions, we did not see that there was really enough setback along the south side. There's retaining walls, Woofie's is almost right up to the right of way. We just didn't see places on the south side of West Main to plant them. So north side would be ideal if the power lines were underground. I really don't know if the power company would allow any trees there.
Okay.
But there are smaller varieties. So can we go back to the layout again of the final report? I know there was some favoritism for the portrait version, the second one. Now that Victoria's here, I just wanted her to hear some feedback, if you don't mind. I had also mentioned that some of the plans that we have would be from landscape format and might fit into the report better. So I wanted to make sure I heard accurately what the preference was.
Can you show them again, Jane? So we can get another look at them?
Sorry.
This was option 2, I think, right? Yeah.
So here was the second one with the portrait format. It does include colors that are a little bit more muted than the first one. And I will pull up the second one. Okay. And so this one has the landscape format. Did you need to see the other one again, or are you good?
So Jane, what you said though was that some of the reports or some of the information was going to be landscape and so would fit better in the landscape format,
The plans, yes.
some of the plans.
Yeah.
So how will that work on, if we choose the portrait, what would that look like? Would just make the information smaller to read? Because you're gonna have to shrink it
If
to
it's
fit.
double-sided, we could cut it in half and have half on one page and half on the other. Or we'd have to make it smaller.
Maybe the landscape would be a better
I think
option
that
than.
smaller is always, like, for those of us who are aging, smaller is always difficult,
Right.
so I don't know. Maybe
Go
the
back to option 1.
maybe option 1 would be better.
So I think the consensus, Jane, is more of the landscape style?
Okay, we can do that.
Okay.
At least for me, I think with that first one, it's harder to read. The font seems more
Dense.
squish, so I don't know if that's an option to just change that a little bit.
For sure.
Maybe choose
More so like that second example, and maybe that's easier.
compromise.
Yeah.
Okay. We can do that. Victoria,
Color-wise,
did you have
too?
anything to add? We went through the format and updates on the status of the different sections of the report.
Yeah, so color-wise too, are we thinking that's okay with the blue? We're keeping with the blue because that's Dudley's main colors, and then with some of the yellow and greens, and then maybe a little bit of light gray. Try to combine what we showed last time into all-in-one color theme. You good with that? All right, perfect. And then the table of contents, I don't know if you guys saw it right there, and I know I missed a little bit, but the layout of that, are we okay? Did you want to go in more in detail of talking about, when we talk about history, we can break that down and say Marino Village and then talk about the mill, like list those out, or just keep it simple and broad?
How long is the report? How long do we expect the report to be?
At this time, I'm thinking the report is around 25 pages, do you think, Jane? Around there?
Sounds about right, yeah.
Probably enough.
Keep it broad?
I think so.
Customers.
Perfect.
With graphics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Perfect. We'll change the font. Color scheme's okay. Table of contents. Is there any pictures that you guys have or references that you think that we should put into the report as well? As you can see, we found like the historical map of Dudley. Is there anything else that you think could be really beneficial or you may know of where we can get those?
Was that a question for me?
Oh, just in general.
No.
We did have a photographer go out and they had, was there drone footage too? Or,
Yeah, we have drone footage.
but if there's anything particular that you feel.
Yeah, we could ask the Historical Society.
Right.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, I'm sure they've got good pictures they would like.
It's on the
Yeah.
library, yeah.
The library, yeah.
That'd be beautiful. Okay. Perfect.
That's all that we had for this project. Unless you have any other questions, we can move on to the next item, I guess.
No, thank you, Jane. It's looking great.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Can't wait to see it.
yeah, that'd be great.
Sorry for having Victoria. We brought her with us to our first meeting and it ran over. We were at the college. I think I told you we were meeting. But Joe, did you want to give an update?
Sure. Is there a way that I could plug my computer in? Show you the brief presentation?
Right over there.
You should just plug that in and it should pop up on the screen.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim. Nice and simple.
We need one of these.
That TV's not on.
There it goes.
Nice. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. So we just wanted to give you a brief update on the site-specific economic development plan. Is everyone familiar with that? Plan in particular? All right. Let me just move to the first slide here. So this is just a recap of what we went over last time. We were here in April, maybe. And we went over some basic economic indicators for Dudley and went over the existing conditions of all the different properties. So that's just a kind of snapshot of some of the slides that we looked at. In terms of what we're doing now for each of the sites, so I'm not going to go into detail about all the specific sites and the analysis. We just kind of give an overview of what we're looking at for each site. So for infrastructure, Jeff Howland, who Bill knows, did a pretty detailed write-up on each site, looking at like water and sewer access, also other things like considerations for fire suppression code and building code, so limitations that would impact reuse or redevelopment for all the different sites. We're also looking at zoning and land use, so in particular things like setbacks and maximum lot usage, and then parking requirements, where that would limit any reuse or redevelopment for each site. And then for economic development in real estate, so we're kind of looking at the, I guess, the practical possibilities for use, or whether demand is there for different types of use. So for the economic development portion, we're doing what's called a leakage analysis for Dudley and a trade area that we've identified. So what that looks at is it takes consumer spending, or it takes business revenue from the economic census, and then it compares it to business revenue in the Dudley trade area, which comprises a lot of towns around Dudley. So we did a 10-minute and a 20-minute trade area. So the 10-minute is Dudley, Webster, and Thompson, and the 20-minute extends all the way to Auburn and Putnam in the south, and then Southbridge and Southbridge in the west, and Auburn and I believe Grafton might even be in the west too, just a smidge in the east. So what that'll look at is hopefully it'll identify some opportunities for retail or service businesses in the community. We haven't finished that analysis yet, so that just spits out some raw figures. But whenever you're doing leakage analysis, you want to look pretty closely at, like, analyze each figure that pops out, because it might be that there might be an opportunity in one industry, give example electronics, but the problem with that might be that there just isn't demand there anymore for that thing. And then we've also had some conversations with real estate brokers about their perceptions about Dudley and what would be required to redevelop some of these properties. So that'll all be incorporated into the plan. And then in terms of next steps, so once we compile all that info, actually, if I could just go back. So we'll look at the economic development and real estate potential for each property, and then kind of based on infrastructure and zoning limitations, determine what is possible and what isn't, and what changes we need to be made if some uses, if there are uses that are promising but aren't currently allowed. And then in terms of next steps, we'll use that to rank the properties in order of reuse / redevelopment potential and readiness, so the town can have an idea of what properties it should focus on. There's a dozen in this project, and it probably wouldn't be smart to focus on all of them all at once. We'll also draft some strategic action items pertaining to what regulatory changes we need to be made, so whether that be zoning or infrastructure improvements. And then we'll identify some marketing strategies for promising properties and some funding sources that could be used to pursue those projects. So that's pretty much just a broad overview of where we're at right now. I don't know if you have any particular questions about the process or anything I left out that you're looking for. We can come back, and we had asked for an extension into July, and if that's granted, we could come back when the board meets in July and give you the more detailed look at all these factors for each property if you'd like. We were also thinking for the final product of doing a story map. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that concept. I can pull one up if you'd like to look at an example.
Yeah, sure.
Alright, so this is a story map for a Berlin Village Strategic Plan that CMRPC did. So a story map is kind of like an interactive web page where residents can examine the plan as opposed to it just being on a PDF or slides. So as you can see, there's tabs, so you can jump to each tab. I think there's an image there that's supposed to show up, but isn't. And so it's just content interspersed with images here. Yeah, this isn't coming up for whatever
The
reason.
photos aren't coming up for some reason, but there's photos that go along with every section.
Let's see if we can find. Well, at the beginning here, you can see kind of what it's supposed to look like. So there'd be content interspersed with images. It's just a little bit more interactive than a PDF plan, but obviously it's up to you, whatever preference, whatever type of deliverable you'd prefer, we can do.
Thanks,
And
Joe.
the benefit of this is that if you're marketing, you can send a link, right? And then your potential clients can then interact with it versus have, a static piece
Yeah.
of paper or a static document that they're interacting with.
Yeah, and I think, whether we would include any of this or not, you could also include some, I believe you can include interactive media, so like videos if you had any. I don't know if we have drone footage, we might just have drone.
Like you can link your prior planning efforts can be linked inside the story map, so it's easy. It's like a one-stop for all things Dudley. It might be a good idea. We figured because with 12 sites, you could potentially use this plan for marketing.
Right.
So to be able to just send the link.
Interesting.
Would the story map concept have all of the maps and background analysis, or would it be more of a summary kind of approach?
No, we can include the maps in the summary analysis. I guess we'll look to probably balance how detailed to get. I guess we could, if we're looking to balance brevity and detail, we can always provide links to some things if we don't want to include it in the story map. But all the maps and info I included in the last slideshow, we can incorporate into this.
I think the story map approach would be kind of exciting to put out. People could scroll through it, see quickly what's going on, maybe get a sense of
Yeah.
what sites really have the most potential or meet their own particular needs rather than having to flip through an entire report.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Even just working in Berlin, this was a couple years ago, but we constantly going back to the story map for access to different parts of this plan.
That's pretty interesting.
I just, I hate to lose all of the detailed analysis that you've done as well, but I think overall the story map approach kind of gives a good first impression.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be too difficult, just a means of like copy and pasting what was in there, those pictures, those maps into the story map. And then it'd just be a little more interactive, like people could jump to a property on the tab list up here if they'd like to. I think it gives us a little more freedom to include images and maps with text and not be so constrained by like slide dimensions and page dimensions. I think this would give us a little bit more room to include all that media. And we'll include for like, I'll have to talk with the Jeff about it, but for individual sites looking at like infrastructure limitations, and some of them are in floodplains, for example. And we'll try to look, I'll have to talk with Jeff about what exactly we can and should show, but we'll try to incorporate some of that too, just so people can see the limitations there, whether a property's septic is in a floodplain or the parking lot would have to be in a floodplain, problems like that. We can try to map that, make it a little more digestible.
Okay.
Were there any questions or anything?
What do you have, I saw on one of your bullets you have a marketing strategies piece. What would you recommend we do in terms of marketing Dudley for economic development?
Yeah, we're still looking to get to that phase. I guess it depends a little bit on like the reuse choices that we identify. There's always the option of Well, this story map in itself would be somewhat of a marketing
Tool.
Right.
tool. But also I think what could be helpful, even beyond this, the story map is, we can also give you like the, for the leakage analysis, there's a lot of like, figures in there that we can just give the heavy hitting stuff in the story map, but we can give you the raw data behind that. And that could be used to kind of, on a case-by-case basis for each property, depending on like the reuse ideas, identify like, there's an opportunity for restaurants in Dudley, there's, what leakage does is it can measure, it creates a like potential demand spending figure, and then it can look at like based on average revenue for a restaurant in the US, how many restaurants could the trade area support? And then it'll give you a figure like, there's 9 less restaurants than this area could support. You can also look at how current spending compares to potential spending. So some of those figures might be interesting to put in like a marketing brochure for some properties. If developers are looking at the opportunities in the region. And it doesn't always have to be that there's less demand than the potential demand. Sometimes meeting potential demand is a sign that an industry is promising in an area. And that might mean that some, more competitive brands who aren't afraid to compete would consider coming in, even though it doesn't show there's room for more demand. They might say, well, I think I can capture the demand that's there. And I know I can explain this more in the report. I know I'm throwing out like some terms here that I wasn't familiar with 6 months ago. So.
Any other questions?
Do you have any infrastructure recommendations? Did you think about what sites might be more desirable if they had certain upgrades to infrastructure, or if water or sewer was extended, or?
Yeah, so Jeff's looked at that. He did a whole. It was more like a essay in an email, right?
A deep dive.
But yeah, some of the sites have or don't have access to water and sewer. So for example, like the I don't know if it would help if I put up the previous slide when I refer to some of the other properties, but just to give you some preliminary look at things. This was the original presentation. We'll give it a second, I guess. There's a lot of images in that presentation.
I don't think everybody got to see it. I don't think everybody was here last time we presented.
That's probably true. Do we want to just jump to the properties? I realize some people might not have seen it.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think-
That's fine.
So that's just a map overall of where the properties are located. So just starting at the Fish Road area here, so there were 2 properties. One that's right next to the Winnabock River,
Yep.
7 West Dudley. It's currently
I own it.
Janice.
I own it.
and then the other one is 40 Fish Road, right over here in red. And so 40 Fish Road doesn't have access to water or sewer.
Sorry, Joe. Do you own them both?
I own 40, what was the first one? I own 40 Fish Road.
Yeah, 40 Fish Road.
And what's the first one?
7 West Dudley. So that's the industrial storage warehouse right on the
Oh,
corner.
no, I own across the street.
Right in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
No, it's fine, yeah. But 40 Fish Road I own.
But yeah, well, so obviously you probably know even better than we do about this property. But yeah, 40 Fish Road doesn't have access to water and sewer. I think the site plan for the grow facility that was going to go in had called for, I think, connecting to the road, creating a new access to the road, so apart from Fish Road. Jeff actually didn't comment on this specifically, but I think it's pretty clear just to the layperson's eye that any industrial use of that facility would probably require improvement of the Fish Road.
That is part, yeah, there's an approved plan to turn that into a cul-de-sac.
Okay, yeah, I can see that in the plan. And I guess the other complication there is that a lot of what was once in 30 is now residential along that road.
Yes.
So I'm just throwing out a guess here, but I imagine those abutters might not want a development there. That's a possibility at least. So that's one obstacle.
That photo is us trespassing.
That's fine.
And then 7 West Dudley also doesn't have access to water or sewer.
Right.
Part of the site is in the floodplain, 100-year floodplain. Most of the parking lot is in the floodplain, and Jeff wasn't sure, but he surmised that there's a good chance that the septic is also in the floodplain. So obviously that would create some limitations for redevelopment. You probably wouldn't be able to it'd be difficult to put something commercial or residential in, because you'd have to probably increase the septic capacity, and you can't really do that. So this isn't a definitive conclusion, but the best use for that property might just be warehousing.
What it's doing now, yeah.
Something that requires light infrastructure. It's right next to the rail trail, so that is promising, I guess, from a residential or commercial perspective. But there's just some infrastructure limitations currently. And we can also look at, another thing we can look at is traffic flows on the roads near these properties. I don't have that.
I have a traffic study I can supply.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that'd be great. CMRPC also does some traffic counts for roads in Dudley, so we can kind of incorporate that in, because some uses might be better or less served on a road based on how busy it is, right? Whether it's something that a property that just induces demand is a destination rather than something of convenience, that type of thing. Okay, let me just go. So these two of the other properties. So there's the town land west of the courthouse, and 1 to 3 Fauché Road, both off of West Main Street. So 1 to 3 Fauché Road has a couple of buildings on it. One's an engineering firm, and the other seems to be an abandoned one level, I don't know what you're gonna call it, office.
Yeah, it's just a storage garage right now.
Yeah, and I think there was plans to build a third property on the site across the street from this one-story building, but that didn't go through for whatever reason. But I think Jeff had determined that this does have access to water and sewer.
It does, yes.
So it's promising for redevelopment in that sense. But the engineering firm owns both parcels. So how interested would they be in dividing up that land or even redeveloping
I
those
think it
street
just
lots
went for
themselves?
auction.
Did it?
Yeah, like about 2 months ago, I believe. It
This-
was. I don't know what
both
happened with it.
properties?
Right.
Yeah, because I was at the auction, but I left, so I don't know what ended up happening at the end.
Yeah,
Interesting.
actually, I think that was mentioned at our last meeting, that was the site was listed for sale.
Right.
And I don't think as of when we put this presentation together, it hadn't sold yet, or at least that sale hadn't been
possible.
listed
It
in
was
the
probably before
town
the
database.
auction, yeah.
But we can double check that again to see if it has been sold since then.
Yep. I don't know if it has.
Jen, do
There
you know
was
why it went to auction, why it just wasn't sold on the open market?
So it's my understanding that I believe the husband of the owner might have passed away. And he ran the business, and it left the wife with it, and I think just financial demand. So I know the intent was, when I looked at it, was they were still looking to maintain the machine shop and sell the property. So I think one of the contingencies was whoever bought it, you had to do, I forget if it was a 5 or a 10-year lease back to them.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So there was a couple things that just didn't work out for us at looking at it, but
So it's a machine shop
yes.
and an engineering firm, or just a?
There were 2 in 1, so the engineering firm was out front, but now I believe they rent that smaller garage building to somebody else just for dry storage, and then they move their engineering facility back to the larger building in the back.
Gotcha. And isn't there a funky deed restriction on that property too?
Yeah, I don't know how pertinent it is, but I'll just say it for me.
But I think it's on town sewer, correct?
Yeah,
Yes,
I think
yeah,
that was
yeah.
Jeff's assessment.
Right.
There's a deed restriction on, like, you can't serve any alcohol or own any animals besides pets and chickens on that property for whatever reason. So I guess not a great spot for a restaurant, but.
No.
Joe, we're on a hard stop here at 11:30, so
Okay.
if you want to just maybe wrap up or summarize, or
Yeah, I mean, if you
Just
got the
a couple of those
picture of,
properties just to see what they are.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
I can
those are
just-
the types of
What do we want?
analysis we've been able to do on each of these locations.
what's that?
I said those are the types of analysis we've been
Okay.
able to do on each of the locations.
yeah, if you want me to breeze through the rest of the slides quickly or just stop here.
Yeah, you can just go through it quick, yeah.
Okay. So the land west of the courthouse, obviously VHB did a big study on that property, so there's not a ton we can add there. I will say, like, talking with some real estate folks, like, getting industrial that far away from highway access can be challenging. So, maybe something more feasible would be like mixed use that includes some housing that might induce a commercial or property to locate there. Just throwing out some ideas there. This was just a map of the West Main Street corridor, so we can provide some like hierarching recommendations for West Main Street. So like whether that be zoning or infrastructure. In the gateway too. I think one lesson of talking with some real estate folks is that possibly, it might be an obstacle for more retail or commercial to locate to Dudley until there's more resident demand. And how do you generate that? I guess one key to that would be redevelopment of the mill. So that might spur some things in the West Main Street area and the gateway. There was also 2 other properties, the Town Beach and then 104 West Main Street, not far from where we are, a little bit west. So 104 West Main Street is right on Reno Pond, so it'd be ideal there for something, like a restaurant or something, where we can provide some case studies of like restaurants in other communities on ponds, just to kind of give you some ideas of what it could be. That has access to water and sewer, so that presents some promise. It's privately owned though, so we have to see what the owner was interested in. The Town Beach, I think we'll have to discuss that more in terms of what we can provide there. I think they're already doing some accessibility improvements to the pathway. But yeah, I don't know, maybe we can provide some programming ideas for that or something. Because it's not really going to be redeveloped or reused, it just put back into use per se.
Yeah.
And then the last area was, second to last area was Schofield Avenue, the business complex on Route 12 near the Connecticut line. As many of you probably know, there was a developer who provided a conceptual plan for that. Some of the limitations with that property are that the back of the property is in a floodplain, so a lot of the undisturbed land there probably couldn't be touched. So the kind of the extent of the parking lot now would be the footprint that you could work with for redevelopment. And I can't remember if that one was on sewer. I don't remember that one. And then the last area was the Oxford Avenue industrial area. So there were a few sites here. So there was one site in red. Is just a site where a house used to be, but is now just a storage facility for a contractor. That's where they park their trucks. The purple facility is conservation land that is currently seems to be a dumping ground for like old cars, boats, tires. And then the 10 Oxford in blue here is a property, an oddly shaped property that includes both the access driveway to Shields Packaging and another property that loops out around and touches Oxford further south. I think the limitations with the site one here was that it's pretty small, so you know it could possibly accommodate like light commercial or but a restaurant would be difficult. Locating the septic in close proximity to the building would be tough. It's industrially zoned, but it doesn't meet. It's non-conforming.
Right.
It's not 3 acres, which is the minimum for Dudley. This other property here, the property that's zoned for conservation right on the French River, is a bit limited because of the Massachusetts Wetlands Act and then Dudley's bylaw. So the portion of the property that you could actually use would be a lot limited by that unless you were to get waivers. And it'll also have to be rezoned, obviously, because it's conservation right now. And cleaned up first. And then 10 Oxford down here, which is the part of the Shields Packaging property that loops around and touches Oxford Ave, is there's no, actually I should say for all these properties, there's no water and sewer that goes that far south from Oxford.
There should be water here, right? At 10 Oxford Ave?
I don't know.
I'd have to double check. I'm working off of memory here.
Yeah.
But I believe the limitation was they might have water actually.
Yeah, I think they have water.
But no sewer.
Right.
So this property is kind of located in a neighborhood that has both residential and a couple like automotive repair shops. So in terms of determining what is the right fit for that area, it's kind of a side road, right? So not like fit for retail. That would be convenience shopping. So consider that when we look at reuse ideas.
Yeah, I think this is their maintenance garage.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that could make sense. Because it seems to be upkept, but not really actively used.
Right.
So that's a look at all the properties. Was there any other questions before we wrapped up?
No.
Yeah, I mean, if you all have any input on any of these properties at any time, feel free to send it along to us. Anything else you think would be useful?
So, Carrie, what's your plan for wrapping up the project now?
So with our 30-day extension, we'll be here probably the next EDC meeting. Do you meet in July?
We were gonna talk about that. We talk about that now. Do you want to meet in July? Should be the 3rd Tuesday of the month.
I won't be here,
I
but
don't think I'll be here either.
Well, what we could do is submit the story map once it's completed for review, and then any input, the committee could give us any input back, and then we could update.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
We can let you know when the next meeting will be.
Okay.
Okay.
We appreciate your feedback, so thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Is it all right if I disconnect you?
Anything else before we move on to the?
Thank you very much. It was.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right,
Get that
thank you very
report.
much.
It's tardy.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, the planning board is hoping to do a master plan update through CMRPC's assistance. We've applied for a grant, and the planning board is working on creating a master plan committee and wanted to know if the EDC would like to have a representative sit on that committee. So you don't have to, decide on that today, but maybe at the next meeting you can.
I think it's a good idea.
Willing,
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Right.
So you can talk about how you would like to appoint somebody or take a volunteer or whatever, but I think as John mentioned, it'd be great to have somebody from the EDC on the master plan committee.
Is there any understanding, any kind of what that might look like in terms of commitment? Because I think that would obviously kind of factor into
my
who
next
would,
question.
yeah. What kind of commitment is that,
Yeah.
you know?
And when would they
It's about
meet?
When would they meet?
18 months,
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably once a month. And it would require, reviewing various chapters and analysis and maps and things of that sort. So it's not an easy one where you can sit back and
Yeah.
just sort of, show
Does
up
this-
once in a while.
Does this have like one member from the planning board, one member from economic development?
Yeah, so there-
Maybe the highway superintendent, I mean, is it kind
The
of?
structure would be 7 members,
Yeah.
one from the planning board, EDC, selectmen, and recreation, and then 3 citizen
Yeah,
volunteers, kind of.
right, okay.
Citizens at large, whatever
Mhm.
it would be. So it'd be a 7-member group.
Okay.
And of course, the consultant would, be the lead, and the town planner would sort of do the coordination part of it. And then, the other thing I wanted to mention was the summer schedule. Did you want to meet in July and August, or just in July, or try to keep the schedule, keep it going during the summer?
I know
I think it's-
July is not good for me.
Yeah, I'm not.
August is fine, but
Yeah,
July.
I'm not around on that August, I mean, this July date, but I'm around for the August one.
Okay.
But-
I'm
So-
okay with both, I think.
Okay,
Yeah, same here.
okay. Maybe I'll
And
send
then,
out.
so Mark and, it's just Mark and Todd, I guess,
Yeah.
would depend on.
See
if
Why don't I
they're
send out
available.
an email then?
Okay.
With some options, and pick the best date. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was, the planning board is meeting tomorrow night with a proposed cell tower developer up across from the high school. So it's an informal meeting, no plans will be shown or anything, but it's a requirement to just meet with the planning board to talk about the project. So just so that you know, so there'd be that cell tower, and then there's another one being proposed down on Carroll Drive, which is where the old sewage treatment plant was.
Yes, right.
Off of Schofield, the town-owned piece of property. Town has a lease with Diamond Communications to build the tower. So that tower will probably come into for planning board permitting in the fall. So get 2 new cell towers that should take care of.
Say, that'd be great for my cell service down in my office on
Yeah,
Schofield.
I'm sure
Right.
that would help you a lot. It's not very good down that way.
No, walking around my office trying to find a hotspot.
Okay, that's all I had.
Well, Bill, congratulations.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you for
Hard work.
everything that you've done.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
It'd be nice to.
To be missed.
Certainly.
Do they make you find your own replacement before you can leave?
No, not yet,
No?
but we'll be working on finding somebody.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get somebody good.
You mentioned that CMRPC will be having a representative for at least a
Yes,
couple meetings
that's
until.
the last, when Don Johnson left, CMRPC had somebody come in and serve as a town planner on a temporary basis
Yeah.
until I came on board.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
okay.
So you'll have some support anyway in the interim.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Good.
So thank you.
Anything
That's
else
the one.
for open discussion? Right.
We'll make a motion
With that-
to adjourn at 11:29.
Okay.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay. Yeah.
Good job, Kelsey.